Hello everybody and good evening. It is Monday night, January 15th, Martin Luther King Day, and it's 28 degrees outside. I'm driving right now in Sayreville, New Jersey on Route 9. Anyways, tonight we are going to talk about ego. That's tonight's topic, ego. Why ego? Let me tell you. So, as you know, if you ask the average person if they like peace, yeah, everybody loves peace. I want peace in the world. People want peace in their relationship. Peace is very important. But the problem is that peace is great, don't get me wrong, but what's going to happen is that what happens when we get into arguments in our own relationships, in our own lives? What are we doing? Are we helping the peace, or are we what's the word I'm looking for? Ruffling the peace. So, what I want to try to talk about today, again, this is my own views, Joseph Stamler here, I'd like to talk about ego, because I believe that the source of every argument and every fight is ego. And let me explain myself. If you're arguing about something, and let's say you're right, and you want to prove that you're right, at what cost do you have to prove that you're right? At the cost of the other person's unhappiness, or let's say their ego is showing up, and then therefore you constantly have your ego to prove that you're right, and their ego to not admit that they're wrong, or maybe they just view things differently than you, and that's okay. But the point is, at the end of the day, the more your ego is, and the more you got to prove that you have to be right, the more you have the need of being right and not letting it go, the more the argument will escalate. So if you think about it, if you could hone your ego, and let's say you're not always right, big deal, and that's okay, even if you're right, but you don't have to prove it. Let the other person think they're right. What's the damage that's going to do to you? Is that not a small price to pay to maybe keep the peace in the world? Think about, if you think about ego and see how things might escalate. I don't want to go to the other extreme, of course, but look at the leader of North Korea. If you ask me, I think a lot of things going on there is driven by ego. And when people have a big ego, they tend to go to the point of maybe full destruction, who knows? But the bottom line is, if they feel like their ego is not being focused on and they're not getting the proper attention, they get stronger on what they're trying to accomplish and more stubborn on it, whether they're right or wrong, because their ego's in the way, and it blinds them. They can't even see past their ego to know, wait a second, maybe I'm really making a big mistake over here. And it even happens in relationships. When you have one spouse that has an opinion about something, and then you have another spouse that has a different opinion, and when the ego gets in the way, all that happens is that the other person, they keep on arguing to see who's right. Whether or not they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but their ego gets to the point where it's so big where they either have to go to marriage counseling, or one spouse decides to leave the other spouse. Over what? Over the fact that they couldn't humble themselves in the moment and just accept it what it is. Sometimes if you talk to people about what the source of a big breakup argument was about, sometimes it's about almost nothing. It's just such a simple thing, because each person felt like they had to be right, and they had to show the other person that they're right, and the other person couldn't lower their ego for a moment to maybe say, you know what, I really love this person. What am I doing here? Why am I fighting with somebody I love over a detail because my ego's getting in the way? The key thing is to try to humble ourselves and realize, what are we working with? What are we trying to give up here? We're in this relationship, and yes, we're not always going to see eye to eye, but we definitely don't want to break apart over my ego was so big and I had to prove that I was right no matter what, until you saw my side and you couldn't give in either, and your ego was huge. And it's not about like, listen, she has a big ego, what do you want from me? I'm just trying to show that I'm right. No. The key thing is, at the end of the day, if the relationship is important to you, so it's about being able to humble yourself, contain your ego, and even if you're right, it's okay, hon, you let it go, so this way you could keep the peace. It's about keeping the peace. And then and on top of it, if you're able to hone your ego and make sure that it doesn't explode at times, then you're really giving yourself, that's really the right tool to give yourself a great relationship. Because think about a relationship and a marriage without fights. How beautiful would that be? And think about the peace you're creating. I think that would be beautiful, at least in my eyes. Anyways, once again, this is Joseph Stamler, Start Living, and you can reach me at josephstamler.com.